Hello, sir.
Good day.
How are you doing?
Another day above ground.
Aw, it's sad.
No, my back is just hurting. I
Oh.
wish I was laying
And
down.
it was a bit of a stressful week.
Just a smidge, yeah.
We did something as parents that I tell other parents never to do, and I did the thing.
We did. We broke a cardinal rule.
But I think there's a time and a place. Sometimes there's never. There's always grays. Nothing so black and white.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to recognize that rule in particular we're talking about, we have abided by for a long time. And in this particular situation, we've abided by it several times.
Yeah.
And this was just not the right time to stand idle.
Well, this wasn't what I was going to talk about, but maybe this is a good actual thing to talk about because parents are probably lots of parents are often in this boat. I've already had this question. So what we've done is we are moving. As of this week, our daughter is going to be switching one of her teachers, not her homeroom, not the rest of her classes. It's just one particular class subject
Yeah.
that she'll be switching. Because I know that that's usually bigger too, is, it's a lot to change everything, but and so maybe that's a good one to talk about,
Yeah.
like when is it a good idea to request the change and then how to go about it?
Yeah. I think that's definitely something to get into.
We do know friends is not enough.
Yeah, and that wasn't the reason we did this,
No,
right?
no,
Like
no.
this was more.
Well, I'm identifying when
Yes,
it is
sorry, continue.
in general. But no, you continue.
No, I was agreeing with you in the sense that yeah, it's not simply about them not liking the fact that they weren't with friends. That wasn't drove this. So
No. Which I know a lot of parents are upset about. If their friends aren't in the classroom, that's not enough to request a change.
yeah,
You just got to make sure that, encouraging your kids to see them at lunch. I know it's hard with littler kids because their friends tend to be the, people who are in their class. As they get into upper elementary and junior high, they can still see them. But there's lots of things you can do to nurture those friendships after school too, like having play dates and stuff like that with
yeah,
little kids. But friends is not a reason. It's really about, if there's, I would say, severe bullying
mhm,
that just you can't get on top of. Bullying is just unacceptable. And it's not up to your kid. We've talked about bullying before. It's not up to your kid to always try to protect themselves.
yeah,
Certainly, there's things they can do to be assertive, but if the bullying continues, I think that that would be one. What do you think?
yeah. I would agree. I think that's kind of a non-negotiable. I think with that though, like we've talked about in the past, you have to be very clear that it is bullying, right? Like isolated
Yes.
incidents here or there isn't bullying. And I think some people are a bit too quick to label stuff as bullying. So be really,
Yeah.
really in tune with the fact that it's consistent, it's deliberate, it's targeted. Those are all things that make it bullying. A couple kids not getting along or whatever every so often isn't really
Or a little bit of teasing
a
or
little bit of
being mean.
teasing.
I
Yeah,
mean, that's just
that
part and parcel.
happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
For our daughter, I would say her learning and emotional well-being
yeah,
was at jeopardy.
100%.
The dynamic between her and the teacher was obvious within the very first day. And there's a little bit of school refusal going on, and you can see there's no learning happening. There's now some school refusal, school avoidance going on, tears coming home every day.
Yeah,
So the dynamic, that would be another reason if their emotional and or learning needs are
yeah,
not being met in the classroom or
yeah.
being
And
jeopardized.
it's with this situation, it was getting to the bottom again of what is happening, right? Like, and trying to ensure that we had an accurate idea or understanding of, is it just that you don't like this person and you're
Because that's not enough either.
right?
Yeah,
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 and so and in this instance, we did give it some time,
yeah.
right? We did have those conversations, and it's important for a few reasons. Like I think she needed to know that she could tell us what was going on and we were listening, but also we weren't just swooping in at the beginning to try and solve it. We've talked about that before too, right? You can't go in and just solve everything immediately, and that wasn't our approach. It was listening, highlighting with her some of the concerns, trying to understand. There was a bit at first of, let's make the best of it. Let's see what happens. Let's, try and come up with some strategies. But yeah, it absolutely came down to it wasn't a fit, period, full stop.
Yeah.
Right.
And detrimental.
Yeah.
Both of our girls have had teachers they didn't get along with, who weren't great, at teaching the way they need to be taught, don't like butt heads. But this one, I've never seen the emotional reaction, from our daughter, just tears
Yeah.
and panics and not wanting to go to school. And we've seen just from, the teacher's reaction to bringing this up, we just knew that that was the right fit.
Yeah. 100%.
Now, it's not easy. Principals are going to try to work it out. And certainly that our principal did was just saying, Kate, thank you for bringing these concerns. Like, let's talk to the teacher and see what we can work out. But as soon as the teacher found out, she's like, no, take her out of the class. So clearly, that wasn't, it was a lot of, yeah. I mean, so to bring it up, the school's going to want to work with you because there's lots of kids. They can't just start, taking every request. So it is coming with concrete data, objective data. It can't just be your thoughts and your worries and your fears. You really need to come with concrete examples and what's going on for your child. It's not just the teacher's mean or the teacher's direct. You can't be blamey. It's about my daughter is coming home in tears every day.
Yeah.
She's asked questions and is belittled, for asking questions, is not learning, So, but very, very specific examples. Which is important, and that's what we
Yeah, and I
really
think
tried to bring.
and that's where that first kind of debrief or regular debrief or take a step back needs to happen, because without it, you're just going to do a knee-jerk reaction, right? And to the point about the administration, yeah, I think it's also important, absolutely, to try and work with them, and that was our approach. We reached out. We didn't reach out with demands. We didn't reach out, blaming. We I think reached out as um open and collaborative as we could, which was essentially, we want to talk about this. Like, we're not making demands, but we're seeing stuff we're not comfortable with. We want to understand, what can we do to make this a better situation? And, it is absolutely the administrative's job to support the teachers and the decisions and the processes that they have in place. In my personal belief is that that doesn't negate the need for them to do their due diligence and understand that maybe sometimes they get it wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not to say that the process is broken. That's not to say they don't know what they're doing. None of that. But no process is perfect. No decision should be so concrete that it is infallible. Right. And again, if you come and have the conversation with, we're seeing things that we're not comfortable with, here's specific examples and here's why it's a concern to us. Where I think we needed to really kind of pay attention was, we weren't getting the answers after a while that really supported an actual attempt to resolve the situation, was the concern that we had, right? Like, we were getting um, repetitive talking points, I think would be the best way to say it, and not real action. And the concern then for us was, if it's something that's continuing and not getting better, there's a specific amount of time before it's too late in this situation, right? Either the administration's like, we can't do anything, we're too far into the semester, it's just going to be too disruptive. That's what we were concerned about, was we wanted it addressed quickly. So you just got to kind of gauge that, right? And again, it's not about picking up the phone and yelling or pounding your desk or anything, and that's not how we started. Ultimately, though, we did get more firm with what our expectations were, and I think that's what.
Well, it was getting worse. And then once we did bring up our concerns, it was completely atrocious, like how Willow was
Yeah.
being affected at school.
Yeah, it was disappointing.
Yeah.
But in a way, it was
Affirming.
well, it was irrefutable then, right?
Yeah.
Like, we could literally turn to, hey, this is precisely what we're concerned about. And so I think that expedited it. I don't know that I'd want to go through this again, nor do I. I mean, we've had conversations about this with her about this isn't normal. This isn't something we will do, just in normal circumstances. But we were trying to make sure she understood that we were there to support her, right? Like we
Yeah.
got that this wasn't just her not liking something,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and she's has had similar teachers, maybe not to this extreme, or coaches, and she's learned to suck it up, but
Mhm.
it was really bad this year. And I mean, we're only in the first month of school, so this is quite quick, but our older daughter also had this teacher, so
Yeah.
we knew and did have the year or whatever, like went through the class, and it was terrible. And so we did already have a background history, and we let her go into the class thinking maybe it would be a bit different. They're different kids, but it was very clear it was not. And yeah, just the outcome. I mean, once we raised the concerns, the teacher wasn't even calling attendance, like completely ignoring her and not even calling her name at attendance, as though she didn't exist in the class. And if she called on her, the teacher completely ignored her. So this is kind of the extreme that we're talking about. So that's before she was paying a lot of attention on our daughter, negative attention, calling her out, belittling her in front of peers. And then when we brought up our concerns, she just stopped, wouldn't look at her, turned her back on her,
Yeah.
completely blatantly ignored her, didn't even call her name, like I said. So this is kind of the extreme that I'm talking about. Ideally, we want to build our relationships with teachers. The rest of the teachers at the beginning of every year, we do want to kind of stroke their ego, right? Rather than going in with demands, especially if you have a kiddo on an IPP or an IEP or 504 plan, right? There's learning needs, social emotional needs. We want to go in, and usually I talk about stroking, right? So we're asking teachers what got them into teaching, what do they love about teaching, right? We're just kind of building that relationship. We're not going in with an agenda. um, and then saying, hey, like, how do you manage behaviors in class? How do you manage inattention? How do you manage calling out or learning needs or whatever your child's needs are? Then you can start narrowing in. How do you manage? What have you found successful? Oh, those are really good ideas. This is that stroking,
Yeah.
right? So, oh, those are really good ideas. I might try that at home. I know I've really been struggling with this with my kiddo. And these are some of the strategies that I've found work or don't work, so would love to keep this door open and this conversation going, just, to support my kiddo. That's kind of, you're laying the seeds. Is there anything I can do to support you that you need help with in the classroom, or that I can better prepare my kiddo for the day, or those types of things I think are really helpful, especially when you've got kids in elementary, middle school, junior high.
Yeah. And I think for us, that's been our approach for years. And it's typically, yeah, we've had good success, even sometimes with the more difficult or not quite as aligned teachers. I don't want to slag teachers. So, but I mean, there's even in the teachers that maybe it wasn't the best fit, we were able to find common ground, right? Like we were able to have those conversations and at least understand where we were coming from both sides. Because I think that's it, right? Like if you can get to a point with your teacher for your kid where you have an understanding of how they approach things and they have an understanding of how you approach things, and ultimately there's a clear communication about what your concerns or what you're trying to support your kid on, a lot of times it's not an issue. Like they get it, they'll check in, you can check in, and it opens a pretty good conversation back and forth, and then you avoid any big pitfalls. And in this particular situation, yeah, like we obviously went against what we normally would do. But again, this is from prior experience, right? If this had been the first go round, we likely would have not done what we did and taken the administrative's advice of just seeing what happens. But and I think that's important sometimes too. We've gone into classes before where the kids weren't 100% sure and they didn't like it, and we just said, let's see. A lot of times it works out fine, right? And that's important to kind of recognize. they're not always going to fit. They're not always going to like the teacher. They don't need to love the teachers, right? But they need to be able to get what they need out of the class, which is the understanding and all the lessons and just, be able to focus on what they need to get done. And if that's not potentially going to be the situation they find themselves in, that's when you have to really look at other options for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you can always look at it as opportunities too. I mean, your kids are going to have like 30 teachers throughout their life and they're not going to get along with them. That's a pretty good skill. How do you still work together with
Hmm.
someone that you don't like? Because that's, for adulthood, if we're looking ahead to adulthood, those are going to be important skills, right? But to a point,
Yeah.
right? There's just some dynamics that just simply do not work.
And I
So,
think that's a great point. I think you nail that through the rest of your life. You're always going to have difficult relationships. It just happens, right? It's how you manage them. That's the lesson you can teach them, right? And we were very open with her about what was happening, what we were talking about, why we were doing it, and that we were the ones that were creating an issue, right? Like it
yeah.
wasn't her. But at the same time, still giving her direction that you need to go to class, you need to do
Mhm.
your work, like you need, right? And so that now hopefully demonstrates that you can get to a resolution that potentially isn't just everybody kumbayaing the way through the rest of like that sometimes just isn't it,
Yeah.
right? But doesn't mean you have to be disrespectful, doesn't mean you have to be angry or fighting. It's just literally express yourself, be really clear, right? And then be firm on what you need. That's the lesson out of this, right? Now, I've had conversations with her now that we know that she is moving about my expectations, which is I expect you to be there and I expect you to be focused and I expect you to be doing your work, right? Like this isn't a lottery, right? Like you didn't just win the lottery. You're in a place so you can learn better. So you need to follow through on your end of the bargain now, right? And I don't see that it's going to be an issue, but there's a give and take to this, right? In terms of we've done what we felt was necessary to put you in the best position. You now need to make sure that you are capitalizing on that, right? Or else next time it'll be like, hey, no, right? Or whatever. Like, no, we went to bat for you one time and you didn't do anything, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Like that's another important lesson as well, too, right?
It is going to be interesting because her friends and her best friend, especially, is in the class that she's changing out of. She's going into a class. She doesn't know anybody
Yeah.
at all. So she
It's
doesn't have
literally the
any friends.
teacher. That's
It's, yeah, just the
yeah.
teacher that does know her learning needs and her emotional needs and things like that. So it's going to be interesting
Yeah.
in that front.
Yeah. And because literally, if she's going into a situation that isn't ideal, that wasn't considered, well, this is now you have to figure it out. We have to make this work,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not fair to the school. It's not fair to the teachers, right? Like we could never go back now and be like, oh, this isn't really, there's difficult kid person. No, that option is off the table now, right? So
Mhm.
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But again, it's an opportunity, right? She doesn't have a lot of friends in this class. Well, how does she make new friends,
Yeah.
right? How does she create relationships that are good for her whilst still focusing on what she wants to get done or needs to get done?
And it's not about friendships anyway, the move. It really was
Yeah,
about
no.
her learning needs. So, but from her perspective, it'll be, teenagers. That's kind of a big thing.
Teenager's going to teenage, right? And that's it, right? Like there's always going to, and I think that's the important thing. There's always going to be drama. They're teenagers.
Yeah.
There's always drama. Always.
I see it as a benefit that her friends are in a different class
So,
because whatever drama is going on in class, because there already is stuff,
oh, yeah.
she's going to be somewhere
She's
else.
going to be completely an island. She'll have
And
no clue.
yeah, and then she can come at lunch and not be part of that drama. Actually, there's a kid, he's younger, elementary. He's probably grade 3 now, but he loves when his friends are not in his class because then he's like, because then they still like me. Just because his ADHD is a little bit
Oh, he gets all wound
on the
up.
severe end. And so he gets called on a lot by the teacher. Johnny, sit down. Johnny, 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 Johnny.
Yeah.
Right. And then other kids are like, Johnny's a bad kid. Right. Because like just all of that. Or Johnny, like you're getting us in trouble. So he actually is grateful for not having
That's funny.
friends in his class.
Well, and I'm sure the school now realizes that and just keep him on a track where he's not with his friends, right? And again, I know a lot of thought goes into this for the most part, and it's not about the friends. It absolutely isn't. But in this situation, the school stepped up. They didn't want to. They've made it very clear to us and to our kid that this is an absolutely exceptional outcome that never happens.
Mm.
Like never. I've heard it probably 10 times now that people have said it. And we get it.
Well, it's fortunate for us. The teacher's like, get her out of my class.
It is. Yeah, it does. That
She
did.
did not take the feedback well.
No, and I mean, we presented it very direct,
We
right?
did.
Like we were very
Well,
direct.
by the time
Yes.
we had to,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, we weren't starting out that way, but by that point we knew that the clock was ticking and we had to address these issues. So we were very upfront. It absolutely wasn't received well, right? Nor, again, I'm not going to blame her for that, like out of the blue, right? I don't know how much she knew or didn't know before it all kind of happened. Um, but at the same time, it was affirmation that we weren't going to be a fit as a unit, right? And so, cool, let's figure out a way that everybody's happier,
yeah,
right? And they did, right? Like we'll see how Monday goes or the next week goes or whatever, but it's a balance. There isn't a perfect roadmap to this, nor are we advocating that everybody goes out because I'll be honest, I think a lot of times parents get way too involved way too early about
yeah,
stuff that doesn't matter.
yeah,
So don't do that,
yeah,
right? But your job is to make sure that your kid is in the right situations to get the best outcome. And that's what we had to assess here, right? And we've mentioned that there have been other teachers and coaches. And I think for me in this situation, when she started to describe the feelings and the interactions she was having as very much like this one particular coach we had a few years ago, that just wasn't acceptable,
hmm
right? And maybe it wasn't accurate, maybe it wasn't 100%, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter if that's truly how she's reacting to it. That's not going to work for us because we did. It was another one of those, we'll just wait and see. And it was catastrophic at the end,
yeah.
right? Fundamentally altered her self-confidence since that point.
Yeah, she's not even the same player. And
Yeah.
yeah, she's hesitant. I mean, this was a coach who would punish her in front of everybody. And
Mhm.
yeah, even other parents are like, can you see what this coach
Yeah.
is doing?
Be okay. Like when
Like,
other parents are asking why she's being like singled out so much, and like let's be. She was 11,
yeah.
like 10 or 11. Like it wasn't like she was old enough to feel she
I
could
think she
stand
was
up.
even younger than that. I think she was like 8 or 9.
No,
Okay.
it was U12. So
Okay.
yeah, it was U12. But it was brutal, right? And so
But we just went along
yeah,
and yeah, this is just the coach. And
yeah. So sometimes you have to be the squeaky wheel. But it's just make sure you're squeaking at the right times and about the right things. That's the balance.
I think high school is just a different ball game. High school is like post-secondary. I think it's just a matter you drop the class and
Move on.
move on. Like there's just no, and it is really unfortunate. I know our daughter went into grade 10 advanced placement AP math. Did great, went into grade 11 math, and the teacher was detrimental to her learning, and she barely passed math for grade 12
Yeah.
because she was crushed. But that was a situation where it was just like there's nothing that we could do. And she wanted to finish that class with that teacher. Like, well, she didn't want to do it with the teacher, but there was no other options, but she didn't want to drop it. But yeah, it really did alter kind of her future too. But unfortunately, yeah, it gets harder as they get older.
It does. And it gets harder to have the right answers, right? Because you can't go in and you shouldn't be doing it when they're littles, but you can't go in when they're getting older too, because it robs them of the opportunity to understand, how to deal with it themselves.
I almost think that she was at a disadvantage because Maya, our older one, actually had great teachers pretty much up until then.
Yeah.
She really had fantastic teachers year after year. And that was the first teacher she was like, right,
Yeah.
like what is going on? Whereas Willow, I feel bad. She hasn't had great teachers year after year.
Had some
It,
here and
a
there.
couple
Yeah.
sprinkled, but she really has, especially throughout elementary, has not had great teachers. And she's hated school, really struggling with that. So I think she's actually going to be more resilient because now, like in high school, she knows how to handle it and
Yeah.
manage it and navigate it and not let it, really affect her. I mean, this was a completely different dynamic, certainly.
Yeah.
But anyway, things to think about.
Yeah. Just all things, right? Like your job is to try and get them in the right situation, but that doesn't mean that slight uncomfortability requires a full scale response,
Yeah.
right? So really think it through, talk it through with the kids, try and work it out with the teachers and the administration, right? Like that should always be the first
Yeah.
option. But
How can we work together? Yeah.
but also understanding that at some point you got to dig in. I mean, some people are really good at it. Some people you're going to listen to this and go, yeah, why is this even a topic? But for a lot of people, maybe it's not so good, right? We tend to be more of a go with the flow family, and sometimes you get bashed into the rocks as you go, right? So you got to be aware of that.
I think the bigger question, and maybe this is a different episode completely if we really wanted to go into it, but I think the bigger question is, do you put your kids in school in the first place? Actually, a parent asked me that the other day. Am I harming my kid by homeschooling? And I'm like, I can't answer that, but I wanted to be like, no, like we should all, because I mean, I love the schools that I work in and I love the teachers that I work in, but just on a whole, looking down at what schools are doing,
Well,
I don't know.
it's the systematic approach to schooling, especially in the province that we're in, that is not good.
Yeah.
Like we've had a friend recently move to a different province and is ecstatic at the level of support they're getting for
Yeah.
their daughter in the school system. And like this is unbelievable. Like we have aides calling us at night being like, "Hey, I just wanted to give you a quick update. This is where we're at."
Wow.
I've asked questions of them like, "Hey, I know this isn't you." And they're like, "Don't worry about it. I got it. I'll have an answer for you tomorrow morning." He's like, "It's unbelievable." Like, and so the response is his daughter is he had a great story the other day about like on day 3 or something or day 4 he was still finishing up the move here. His wife and daughter were out in the new place in BC. And his daughter asked her mom, like, can we go to bed early tonight so I can get up early? Like, I want to get to school tomorrow. So the sooner I go to bed tonight, the sooner it's tomorrow and we can go. Like
Wow.
crazy excited, right?
Wow.
Like, and so it's possible for the school system to be like that. Um, but yeah, we unfortunately live in a place where that's not the approach. And there's potentially a strike coming or a lockout or who knows. And it's, yeah, homeschoolers might have had the right idea for a while.
Well, it's just the way, yeah, I will talk about how kids actually need to learn and how schools don't really allow for that. But
And again, that's the
anyway,
bureaucracy of the school system, not necessarily the teachers.
no, 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 no,
Really.
no, no. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
This
Exactly.
is it's it's important to register or to acknowledge the teachers are doing the best for the most part with what they can and what they
Yeah.
have. The problem is what they have is eroding year over year over year over year over year. And the curriculum, especially where we are, sucks.
Well, just the strictness of it and the outcomes based, like the focus is on grade,
Yeah,
right?
not on
It's
learning.
not on learning.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. And so kids are just learning knowledge long enough to remember it for a test. So there's not real deep learning and deep interest, you know. So anyway, that's a different topic for a different day.
All right.